All right, we are live here, guys, for episode 8. Now, I'm going to do my usual thing, which is number 1, get rid of that, and do all this deal. So we don't have anybody with us just yet, but I'm just going to go onto my, let's see here. Go to my Facebook page, make sure all things are happening as I would like them to be happening. But I'm really excited because I'm very committed right now to doing these once a week. I feel like I had such good momentum going into Paris. So as you guys know, I just got back from Paris, I guess it's been 2 weeks now, and I was doing such a good job of going live, and we're live. See, check me out. This is the thing that's happening. Anyway, I was doing such a good job of going live weekly, and nobody, I don't know, it just got a little crazy. And when I got back, I just didn't get back into the swing of things. And I don't know, I love doing these actually. It's really fun, but I find that once I lose steam and I don't do one for a little bit, then basically all hell breaks loose. So here's what I'm noticing. I do these in the middle of the day, and it seems like less people show up. So I'm playing with time of day. Even though there's nobody here right now, I'm just going to keep talking because it'll be great information for the replay. But I have noticed that, so I am testing out different times and when to do these. But basically, I'm going to try to figure out a set time ongoing at some point in time. It's just a matter of when I'm going to do that. I really honestly just don't know what is the best time and when I should be doing these in order to get more people showing up and all that. So yeah, normally if you've actually watched these before with me, you know that normally I'm drinking wine because normally I do these, like I said, in the evening. But it's 1:05. So this coffee cup here is what's joining me today. And actually, speaking of this coffee cup, see how cute this is? It's very cute. I got this, one of my friends that I met actually after I started my business. So she's like an entrepreneur friend, I guess. She gave me this for Christmas, and it was filled with the oh so most delicious chocolate. And I loved it so much. It's really big. This definitely has caffeine in it. It's my second of the day. I like to have these, I don't know, this is a problem. I drink a lot of coffee when I work from home. But yeah, so she got me that, and my partner had actually asked for big Starbucks coffee cups for Christmas, but the problem was the coffee cup he wanted from Starbucks no longer existed, like the really, really big one, which is what he currently has, and he just likes to have a really big cup of coffee, I guess. And so I saw these, she gave me one of these bad boys, and I asked her where she got it. So then, oh God, this is embarrassing. I have 2 of these at my desk right now because I'm not the best at actually bringing dishes back to the kitchen. But I went to where she told me she got these, which I feel like this story would be better if I could actually tell you. It was somewhere in the Danforth. Anyways, really cute place. I can't remember what it's called. Anyways, I wanted to see if I could get 3 more of these to make a complete set / give them to my partner for Christmas. And so, unfortunately, I was only able to find 2 more, so I have a set of 3, not 4, which is really, my OCD does not like that. I like to have a complete set, but it didn't matter because they're so cute and whatever. Another thing I realized as I check out my hair right now is that I've done this twice now. I've done a video twice now where I don't necessarily go too crazy with doing my hair, aka, which means just a little slight curl like I've got going on here. And let me tell you, did not like the hair. I'm embarrassed. And actually right now, you know what I'll say is when you do your hair in a mirror and look at yourself in the mirror, I feel like something about that mirror is lying to us, because then when I do these videos and I see my hair and I'm like, this is not what I look like in the mirror. I thought things were looking a little more put together in the mirror, but whatever. This is what we're dealing with. Okay, so today we've got some stuff we're going to talk about. I'm going to tell you what's new, as I normally do. I am going to, I'm starting something new where periodically in my Facebook group, I'm going to, which by the way is called Dream Homies. And that reminds me, I should actually say who I am. My name's Michelle Bennett. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm an interior decorator here in Toronto, but I also offer virtual services. And if you want to know more, you can go to michellebennett.com. So what I'm actually doing is I'm doing these every Friday. So it's the Dream Homies live show, which is basically just piggybacking off of my Facebook group, which is a free Facebook group. Anybody can join, go to Dream Homies, or you can go to my website and find a link to get access to it. But it's a group where homeowners can actually just ask for advice, tips, any of that stuff for your home. And I provide tips and I kind of try to help you guys out in the process, but everybody helps each other. So basically what I'm doing is I'm doing these where I answer some of the questions in the group live in video so I can elaborate a little bit more, and you can get all the show notes. So all the things I'm talking about today, a quick summary, by going to michellebennett.com/show/8. Full disclosure, that page isn't totally live. It is live, but it doesn't have all of the details just yet. So by the end of the day, everything that I've talked about will have links and all that good stuff in there. So, let's see. I think that's pretty much it as far as that's concerned. I'm going to do a little screen share here so that we can actually get to what we're talking about today. All right, so I'm just going to make sure everything's working as expected because when I screen share, okay, I think things are good. It's looking pretty good. So, for those of you who are watching this in the replay, I encourage you to share because, as you know, sharing is caring. And if I'm being honest, it's just really good karma. So I don't think you should mess with karma personally. So if you think that any of the stuff I'm talking about in today's video, which is I'm going to be talking a little bit about shelf styling and I'm going to do a project reveal. But the shelf styling is kind of 3 tips on how you can style your shelf a little more effectively. And it's basically responding to a question from my Facebook group, Dream Homies. Okay. So what's new, yo? So what's new? Okay. I've been doing a lot of finishing touches packages. Basically, finishing touches is when a client hires me to kind of come to their home, I do a quick inventory. So I come for an hour, figure out, basically what rooms we want to style. So I do only 2 rooms. So I learned something the hard way last night. So you might know that I actually recently started my business. Well, it's been over a year now, but, sometimes you learn things as you go and sometimes you realize that you might have bitten off a little more than you can chew. So yesterday I did I did 4 rooms. And if I'm being honest, that was too much. So the problem is to do 4 rooms, I probably would need 2 days. So going forward, I do 2 rooms, in one day and then there's shopping that leads up to it. So the the problem with that is I realize when I go shopping, I often go to Yorkdale because Yorkdale has Crate and Barrel, Pottery Barn Kids, Zara Home, which apparently I'm told that not everybody was aware that Zara had a home, a home line. And we actually were lucky in Toronto. We have one at the Yorkdale Mall. So if you haven't checked it out, it's a really great store. But luckily they're all fairly close to each other in the mall. But when you're spending, upwards of $2,000 for finishing touches, you can imagine how much stuff that can end up being. So trying to carry all these things in a mall where there's no shopping carts, I really wish there were shopping carts in malls, even though I can imagine how chaotic that would be. But it's gotten really crazy. So this bad boy is what's new in my life. So I got this at IKEA. I forget what it's called. But let me tell you, it's basically a grandma cart. So I'm basically rocking the grandma look, and I rocked this bad boy with me to Yorkdale Mall on Wednesday. And I'm really sad to say it was nowhere near enough to carry all the things I needed to carry, but it offered me a bit of relief. But yeah, so that happened. That's a thing. I'm not embarrassed. Okay, I'm a little embarrassed, but you know what? You gotta do what you gotta do because time is money, right? Okay, another thing I'm doing is I'm doing a mindfulness program right now, which is kind of crazy. it's very intense. And what happened was actually I had a client tell me about this. I did a mini makeover when I was offering mini makeovers. Now I just do consultations, 2 or 3 hour consultations. But I did a mini makeover for a client and we got into a conversation after it was done about this program that she did. And it was a mindfulness program. And it's through this lady. Her name's called Heidi Walk, although her website is HeidiWalks. .com or .ca, I'm not sure, but I have the links to it in the show notes, and which you can see down below here. Hopefully I'm pointing to the right side. I think it's down below here. Forget, everything's backwards. I forget what way to point. But yeah, so basically it's a 9-week program. Once a week for 3 hours you go. You have to read a book. You have to do daily meditation. So you have to do a 10-minute meditation every day. You have to do a 45-minute body scan. And I do think it kind of escalates from there to more, which is it's really, really intense. But it's been really awesome because mindfulness has been something I've been really trying to work with for some time, really trying to get my head around how I can, I guess, quiet all the questions or the thoughts that are racing in your head, which apparently is very normal. And most people have like over, I don't even know. I wish I can't remember how many thoughts people have in a day, but it's an obscene amount of thoughts. And, this has really actually forced me, because the reality is for me is I feel like I'm always going, and I always feel like I'm behind the 8 ball and I'm not taking the time for myself. So what's really cool about this is that it's forced me to actually sit down and create myself a morning routine, which is something that they say, sorry, I felt like there's something up there. But creating a morning routine is something that they say, like, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you should be doing in order to really, get the most out of your day and kind of set up your day for success. There's something out there called, the Miracle Morning, which I try to do. If you don't know what that is, I recommend Googling it. But so what I did was I sat down and I thought about all the things that I need to do, because I needed to read, which I don't do. I'm not going to lie. I listen to podcasts. I listen to audiobooks, but I just don't, I struggle honestly to sit and read because of all the, like, I get distracted very easily. But I needed to read, and I don't know if there's an audiobook version of the book that I'm reading, which I should have brought up here. It's called, I don't even remember what it's called. So there's that. I'll add it actually in the show notes now that I'm thinking about it. I'm going to make a note of that. Sorry guys, I'll add book to show notes. But yeah, so I needed to make time for reading, this meditation that I have to do 10 minutes in the morning. Then I want to eat. You know, you gotta eat. And then, okay, this sounds really ridiculous, but I need to make time for hygiene. That's right. Like brushing my hair, putting makeup on, showering, because when you work from home and you're not seeing clients, and there's days where I just work from home and I get to the grind, I could go a whole day and hang out in my pajamas, which is obviously not ideal, although very comfortable and quite enjoyable. But I feel like I need to make it a priority. And then also getting to the gym. So what I did was I sat down and I mapped out, because I also want to be starting my day by, let's call it 8:30, 9 o'clock. And by starting my day, I mean starting to focus on my business or starting to focus on client work. So I sat down and I figured out, and I also try to hydrate now. So the first thing I do when I wake up is I hydrate. I'm going to sneeze, so I'm going to try to keep talking through it, but I might have to stop to sneeze. I feel like it's leaving. It's not happening, so I'm okay. But yeah, so basically, I get up, I pour myself this big ass glass of water, and I think it's 16-ounce glass of water. I pour that and I take a hardcore swig of that. Then I sit down and I meditate for 10 minutes. It's a guided meditation. Then I read for a half hour. So I literally set my timer for a half hour on my phone, and then I get to reading. Then I eat, and I timed that. It takes me about 20 minutes to eat and do the dishes and kind of tidy up the kitchen. Then from there, if I'm not going to be working out at lunch, I'll go into hygiene. That's right. I'm calling it hygiene. So I get in the shower, I do my hair, I actually put makeup on my face, because that's a whole other thing. Don't get me started on what this face looks like most of the time. And so I timed it, and it takes about 2.5 hours for me to do all that. And so I figured out when I need to start in order to start my day at 8:30. So now, for an hour, I'm trying to work on content for you guys. So for this for this show, for my blog, for all of that good stuff. So so this whole mindfulness thing is really good. It's kind of getting me into a place where I'm thinking about taking care of myself, which is really important, and making sure that my entire life is not all about my business and my clients, which I'm going to be honest, I love, but I don't want to turn it into a place where I'm not loving these things anymore. So there you have it. Working on getting mindful, and it's been really awesome so far. Ooh, I'm very excited. Another thing that's new is another reveal, guys. So I actually recently posted a blog, so I'm going to take you through right now some of this reveal. So we'll go through some of the before stuff. So here is the before, and I teach this actually in my Facebook group, and I'll talk a little bit about this as well. So when my client initially called me, we were going to do living room, dining room, which is kind of like an open concept area, and her master bedroom. So this is the master bedroom, and basically what we had was she has 2 alcoves, and you'll see the other one. So the alcove being like the recessed area that you see here in where the bed is. So the first thing I thought was that, okay, actually it's interesting how perfectly the bed fits and how perfectly the headboard fits. And actually this is a really cool headboard. I really quite like it. I think it's cool. It's vintage looking. And I think in the right space it would be perfect. But it wasn't working in this space. So the first thing I noticed was, okay, this alcove where your bed is actually needs to turn into the headboard. So we're going to actually turn this alcove into an accent wall. So this is where I've talked about accent walls before, and you can check out a previous episode, I forget which one, where I actually talk about accent walls, and I'll add that in the show notes as well. But basically I want to turn that into an accent wall and actually make it feel like it's the actual headboard. She also had curtains across the closet, which, you know, I get it. Sometimes it's just easier, but to me it kind of feels like college dorm room. So let's get rid of those and get some real doors on there. Her dresser that you can see here actually was a little bit too big, even though it was really cool. I think it could have been refinished, but it was a little bit big for this space. And then we have, I can't really tell, I can't remember either, some sort of like yellowish paint on the walls. Then we moved to the other side. So what you can't see is she had a really terrible light fixture, and it came with the house. But she also had another alcove. Now, she wanted to get rid of the TV, which was really, really great because I hate TVs in a bedroom, even though, full disclosure, I totally have one. It's one of those things where my partner and I don't disagree, and I don't feel so passionately about it that I want to put up a fight about it, so it is what it is. But I don't particularly like it, and it's really, if I'm being honest, it's really bad for mindfulness. So there's that. But basically she had another alcove on the other side where she put in a dresser, which again fit, but it didn't feel right. It felt a little forced. Like, to me, this alcove was really screaming for us to turn it into something more functional and more intentional. So here we go. Here's what we did with the bed. So we toyed with a few ideas. So I actually presented the option actually of this, what we did, but I also presented some options with wallpaper. And I actually really like the idea of the wallpaper, but she was leaning more towards the rustic wood. And I'm really, really glad we did go this direction after it was all said and done, because I love how it turned out. And what we really tried to do was make sure, if you're going to go with a more rustic feel, because it is a very trendy thing, I really wanted to make sure that the entire room didn't feel rustic, but made sure that it blended really well with a polished feel and the more rustic feel. So the way I did that was by incorporating some elements of gold. So here you can see with the new light fixture that we swapped out, it's got a gold trim. So it's a really kind of nice sophisticated vibe in contrast to that really rustic feel. We found some really, I just love a client who's not afraid to make a statement. So I found these really amazing pillows from Tonic Living. So they kind of tie into the wood a little bit with the leaves and whatnot. And then a really neutral comforter, which is from Zara Home. So we did a nice pale color on the walls. It's a pale green. The color is escaping me right now, but it was nice because we didn't want to go with a white wall since we had done all white in the main floor. So we wanted to mix it up here. Okay, so moving on. This was kind of like a little nook in the corner. So she had before, I think she just had that, what we saw was like a big basket. What I wanted to do was an area where she could sit and read a book if she wanted to, but really it's just kind of creating a nice focal point, a nice little vignette that adds additional contrast with the chair. So this chair is actually from IKEA. I freaking love this chair. They launched this chair with this year's catalog, and I could say it's probably not for everybody. I find that things like rattan and this kind of vibe are really just kind of like an either love or hate situation. It's literally not for everybody. But basically what we did was we paired it with a cute pillow, and then you add the classic sheepskin throw on that, and it's adding lots of great texture. So here you can kind of see how the room comes together in relation to the bed. And then this was probably my favorite part, well, along with the headboard, obviously. But what we did was we turned the alcove into a super functional space. And this is all built in. So we just used IKEA cabinets for the lowers, and we had a contractor help build this for us. Obviously, I added some sconces on either side of the mirror so that she could have adequate light if she is doing her makeup at the vanity here. But it's also a really great place because she likes to do some crafting stuff. I don't even know if I would call it crafting. It's way like she does like macrame type stuff. I don't know. I'm not really a crafter, so I'm probably not using the right stuff, the right language. So, I see we have somebody, Jordan. Thanks for the like, Jordan. Yeah. So basically what we did was, we added the vanity to make it really functional, and I love how this turned out. So the top shelf, you have to be really careful because of the angling, we needed to make sure that there was enough room for us to actually use the functional space in the middle. And it's also, the shelf isn't quite as deep because you want to be able to access that shelf. And the higher shelf is and the deeper it is, the harder it is for it to be functional. And then on the other side, you can see that we replaced the dresser. And this was actually a dresser that my client found. So she's really good at finding awesome vintage pieces. So she actually found this on Kijiji, I'm pretty sure. And what she did was she just sent me the link and had me confirm that the size was the right size. And I actually really loved how it turned out because the tone of it works really well in relation to the headboard, and it just kind of ties in really nicely. And then obviously we swapped out the light fixture to create something a little nicer. The light fixture before that was a bit of a hot mess. So there you have it. That is Project Hodgepodge, and you can check that out again in the show notes. There's a link to a full blog post with more photos for that. Okay, so another thing I'm doing, so for those of you who don't know, again, I have a Facebook group. It's called Dream Homies. I actually put it out to the community to actually give me a tip or give the group a tip. Because let's be real, I have tips, but everybody has tips and thinks about things along the way. So whether you have a tip on how to hang art, picking paint, anything. I don't even care what it is. Home organization, a great hack. Whatever it is, let's have at her. So next time I'm posting that, I encourage you to chime in and give me your tips. So again, it was from the Dream Homies group, so we won't get into that. But here is the tip that was given from Linda. And I'm not going to lie, Linda's my mother-in-law. I can always count on her to chime in if nobody else does. And we didn't get a lot of activity here, but I'm sure over time people will start to comment a little more. But here is her tip, and I love her tip. It's so good. If you wouldn't buy it today, then don't keep it. Love everything in your house. It should all bring you joy. And yes, we all have better halves who won't let us get rid of stuff, but chip, 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 and you can eventually chip away at that rock. So I think this is a really, really good tip. I could not agree more. This kind of has a little bit to do with that book, which I started to read, but I didn't end up reading. I talked about it on a previous episode. I know another homie actually did read it, and she was actually sending me messages and telling me like the summary of what I needed to do. But that whole book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, or blah, whatever it's called. But it's a very similar thing. They basically tell you to pick up an item, and if it doesn't bring you joy, then you should get rid of it. This item brings me joy. Why? Because A, it's a red stapler, and B, I actually got this from a previous client or previous employee or coworker at an old job. she went on mat leave and she told me to take care of her stapler, which I did. I'm talking like 7 years ago. I think this was 7 years ago. This stapler has been with me through thick and thin. Thing about her is I took good care of her stapler, but then she never came back to work. She never ended up coming back. So, you know what, Shannon, if you're out there, the stapler has served me well and it's mine now. I've given it a really great home and it's mine now. But anyways, yeah, so that's basically the idea. So I think it's similar to what Linda's saying and I think it's a really great tip. Okay, so moving on. Homey Q&A. All right, guys. So I've got 2 homey Q&As and one is styling and the other one is just a quick question. So Allison, fellow homie, asked the group, looking for a large mirror maybe, ? Any ideas? Drop the photos below. Thanks. So here's a picture of her living room. And what she's got going on here is she's got a couch that's tucked right into the wall, which is what happens a lot of the times in smaller spaces when you have a sectional. So this is very common. What makes it difficult though when you have a couch like this in a room is that normally what you want to do with your art is you actually want to center it on top of the couch. But what can happen in a situation like this is that art can start to look a little bit off center, even though it's centered with the couch. So I do recommend, Linda actually did comment saying like, I'm not sure if I would do a mirror, and I would tend to agree. I actually think the same thing that Linda said, which is some large statement art. But what's going to get difficult when you add the large art is there's going to be some balance issues with the art on the other wall. I would also say that art on the other wall is a little high and probably a little too far apart. I would pull those 2 pieces together or possibly even remove them or stack maybe 4 of them so that there's 4 in a grid. So it creates like a larger square, with those. But what I would do is similar. I found some inspiration photos online. So I got all of these off of Pinterest. This is not my work. But here there's examples of a similar situation where sectional couches are actually bumped up against 2 walls. So in the first instance, you can't see the other side, but they've done large statement art and they haven't really worried too much about whether that art is centered above the couch, but instead they're just centering it on the wall. Now, if you're going to center it on the wall, I think that's a really good way to go. But what you're going to have to do, so I'm going to go back to the original photo, is add a side table and maybe a lamp in order to balance the fact that it's not centered above the couch, but instead centered, as you can see here, above. And I don't know if my cursor works, and it doesn't because I don't even have a cursor. But if you're centering it on the wall, then you're going to add like they've done on the picture on the left with a lamp and a side table. If you remove that, then it's going to become more obvious that that's not properly centered on the couch. In the second situation, what they've done is they've gone really, really, really big above the couch, and then they've also gone fairly big on the other wall as well. So right now what you can see is, if you think about this middle image, if that big black art only had 2 really small pieces on the other wall, it might feel a little bit off balance wise. So that's something to think about too. And then the third picture, again, they've got art on both walls, but they're larger in scale and they're kind of balancing each other again. So that's what I would suggest doing. So going back to your couch, I would suggest finding something on that to put on the side of your couch and getting maybe 3 large frames, maybe even 4, although ideally 3 is a magic number. When you're doing things in design, 3 is always kind of a magic number, whether you're doing vignettes or hanging art in a row. 3 is always a nice number, but there's always exceptions to the rule. But it'll depend on how big you go. But what you want to do is go as big as possible and hang them above the couch, centered maybe on the wall without me seeing this entire space. It's hard to say. And then finding something at the end of the couch to help balance that out a bit. So there you have it, Allison. I hope that's helpful. And feel free to comment in the group if you have any additional questions. All right, question 2. This was a big one. So I'm actually going to go into more depth on this one. So question 2 is, what should you put in a built-in bookcase to look up to date? So, that's a loaded question. What shouldn't you put? And actually, I feel like I need to take a sip of coffee before getting into this one because it's a doozy. So what do you put in a bookcase for it to look up to date? Well, you can put lots of things. I would start with books, but I don't even mean books like where you're stacking them in a row. I'm talking books where you're laying them in different orientations. Some are going to be upright, some are going to be lying flat, and you're going to add decor items on top of those things, beside of those things. Another thing you want to do, which a lot of people don't realize you can do, is actually stack art within the bookcase. You want to do vases, you want to do boxes, you want to mix up the textures. You can do a branch, like a driftwood type branch. The key is really varying the sizes, varying the types of objects, and varying the textures. So you want to think about incorporating glass. Maybe you're incorporating some mirror, wood. Maybe you're adding some metals. You really want to think about how you can kind of mix it up in order to make this space, to make it not feel like you've just added vases or books throughout. So here's 3 quick tips on how you can style your bookshelf kind of from point A to point B. So the first thing you're going to do, step 1, is you're going to purge and then you're going to collect. So if you have a shelf, which I'm sure you do, since you asked the question, you're going to take everything off of the shelf. Take every single thing off of the shelf and pile it into 2 piles. Pile 1, worthy. Pile 2, not worthy. And worthy being worthy of being on display in order to create a shelf that is decorative and like art, as opposed to a shelf that's just strictly functional, which you might do, say, in an office, even though I would still want that shelf to be pretty, even if it wasn't an office, because I just like to be surrounded by pretty things. So basically, worthy and not worthy. So, I'm trying to think of an example of something that's not worthy. A file folder that kind of is like in a plastic, not so attractive. Let's see. Do I have anything like that right now? I don't. But basically, like, the plastic file folders that are not super attractive, they're really just functional. That's something maybe you wouldn't put into here. But a nice vase or a nice file folder that's kind of intentionally in a nice box would go on the shelf. So really try to get real with yourself. Go on Pinterest, look to see what other people are doing, and make sure you kind of get rid of the stuff that's ugly. Just get rid of the ugly. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to collect all the things. So your worthy pile, and then you're going to look for additional items. You can look throughout your whole house. Anything that you can have, pull it together, see what you've got. So we're talking vases, art, boxes, baskets. And when I'm working with clients, so I was talking about finishing touches earlier, the way I actually do it, and this is something that you can actually try to incorporate yourself. The first thing I do when I'm doing a finishing touches package with a client is, number 1, I go to their house for an hour and I do inventory. So basically, I will assess the room. So if we have a shelf, I'm actually going to assess the shelf, and I don't have I might actually. Bear with me, peeps. Okay, I actually don't have one with me, but what I actually do is I draw on a piece of paper the shelf. I actually measure each and every shelf. I measure the width, the height, the depth, because there's nothing worse than going shopping, buying baskets, for example, and then having them not fit. So I actually draw it all out, measure it all out, and then I establish, I establish everything that I need. I know I need some books. I need some big items, some small items. If I decide, sometimes what I do is I have the bottom 2 shelves be strictly decorative baskets, which is where you can hide all the stuff that's not so, the not so worthy stuff. But the key to that is making sure the baskets are appropriately sized. You want them hanging over the shelf. You don't want them to be too small. And you can sometimes adjust shelves to make it work. But that's what I'll do. And what I then do is I'll actually go back. I'll draw it out properly to scale, and I will carry that around. I'll take a picture of the shelf. I'll print that, and then I'll have the drawing of the shelf, and I will carry that with me to the mall, wherever I'm shopping, and I will actually reference. And I will actually think beforehand, what I'm thinking I need. I have, some shelving here. I think I want some vases. I need some baskets. I need some stackable boxes. I need all of these things. So I really try to figure it out what I need in relation to what I already have and go from there. So that's a really great tip that, might seem a bit tedious, but I promise you it's going to make your life a lot easier. So that's basically the first step. You're purging and then you're collecting. You're gathering all the things that you need. So moving on to step 2, you're going to divide and conquer. So what I recommend you do, number 1, is you find all the books. And when we're talking about books, there are worthy books and not worthy books, which I didn't talk about in step 1, but you can see in the picture here, these are nice books. They're coffee table books. They are books that I'm not embarrassed to put on display. So like the book on Kama Sutra, I can't even say the word. You know, if you're trying to spice up your sex life, maybe it's not the book that you want on your shelf though, because you got family, your parents coming over, you know, weird stuff like that. So maybe you think about, even if it's an attractive looking book, it might not need to be on display. So what you want to do is find the nice looking books, and ideally if you're stacking books, 3 is a good number to stack, and you want the books to start from larger to smaller when you're stacking books, and then you can place a decorative item on top of that. So an example is right here in the picture. I've stacked 3 books, and then I have a little birdie on there, a little birdie candle on there. So you start with the books. You're going to play around with like placing them in the shelf vertically, horizontally, and you're going to try to distribute those throughout the shelf in a balanced way. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical. Some people really like symmetry, but you can kind of work with whatever makes sense for you. And then what you're going to do, you can also consider the colors of the books, kind of do that to tie that in. So you can see even in this picture, I was paying somewhat attention to the color with the birdie stack, where I had some colorful pink and whatnot. So these are things that you can do as well. Then you're going to actually look for art. So the key with the art, and you can see it actually in the pictures here, is the art needs to be smaller than the height of the shelf. And you're going to do 2 things with art. You're either going to have art that has a thick enough frame that you can actually set it completely upright, or you're going to have frames that are thinner and need to be leaning. So you're going to play around with that, and you're going to distribute those throughout your shelf as well. So again, you're working on balance. I would probably only do 2 to 3 areas with leaning, with the art throughout. But that's something that you can do. What actually adding art to a bookcase does is it helps visually maximize space that sometimes can be hard to fill with other objects. So with art, you can have a larger piece of art to fill a shelf, and then you just layer something small in front of it, which I've done here in the photos. So when it comes to shelving and actually all styling, layering is your friend. You want to layer things in varying heights. So you want something that's bigger, smaller, and then lower, kind of a bit lower to the surface, or the surface. So that's kind of the key. So you can kind of see that come to life in the picture here. So then the third step is starting to grab like the bigger objects and trying to distribute those throughout. And what you're really trying to do is create a series of vignettes together on the shelf. So when you look at the picture here, when you look at the plant, you have a vignette there. You have a frame, you have 2 candlesticks, and then you have the plant. Those together are varying in heights. They're varying in textures. So the plant is adding a texture, it's adding color. You have wood with the frame, you have black with the frame, you have the metal with the candlesticks, and then glass. That's basically varying different finishes in order to create something that feels interesting and just kind of well styled. Okay, so then from there, you're going to go to step 3, which is you're going to then start to gather all the other things and start to put them throughout. Again, really trying to create vignettes throughout the space. In some cases, you might have smaller areas where all you need to do is put one large item. So like I've done here with the actual vase, the black vase. In that case, I decided to go simpler. And then you can also see the cube here is actually a light. So you can vary where you're going to bundle a bunch of things together, but on some shelves you can go with just one item. If you're going to go with just one item on a wider shelf, you need to make sure that it's taking up enough of the space that the balance feels right. So again, the key is varying textures, varying sizes, styles, and tones. So you really want to be playing around. What I do is I'm going to start playing around. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to then assess. I'm going to look at the balance. Something that you can do too is actually squint your eyes because you can kind of see things a little differently when you do that. Another key or another tip that you can do is actually take a photo. So I heard somewhere along the way that when you're styling a room, taking a photo and looking at the room in a photo, for whatever reason that I have no idea. Sometimes I just hear tips and I try them and they work, but I can't necessarily explain why this is a thing. Maybe if anybody happens to know, you can comment below. But basically, take a photo and look at it on the photo. You'll actually see balance issues that you don't see just from looking at the room. And I do this actually sometimes after I get a photo shoot in. I'll actually assess the space and I can tell where I might have done things a little bit differently. But the key here is edit, edit, edit. You just got to keep doing it. You got to keep playing it until the balance feels right. Sometimes it means going back out to find pieces that are missing that you don't have in order to create that really perfectly styled shelf. So there you have it, guys. Those are my 3 tips for styling a shelf. It really does take practice. And I also recommend, honestly, just get out there and check out, go on Pinterest, print some shelving that you like, and see what they're doing and try to kind of deconstruct what they've done and figure out how to kind of do it yourself. So I think that's it for what I wanted to talk about. So we're going to go back here. Can reassess the hair. Still not looking great, guys. You know what? I feel like I need somebody to come do my hair before I do this. Not gonna lie. I'm vain. I'm very vain and I'm not feeling my hair right now, but that's okay. So I think that's all I got for you guys today. So again, if you want to know more about some of the things I've talked about, go to the show notes, michellebennett.com/show/8. If you want to know more about how we can work together, there's a link on the show notes on where you can go to learn more about my services. Because I offer a lot of different services, from coaching, which is a new service that I'm offering, which is basically me. You purchase a block of hours and then you can contact me anytime you need help making decisions. So I offer coaching. I do consultation only if you just want me to help you with a space and get you on the right track, and then you take it from there. And then we can do some project-based stuff. I offer virtual designs. So like I said, I offer so many different things, finishing touches. The possibilities are endless. So I really do customize based on my clients' needs. If you have no idea what the best package is for you, just schedule a discovery call and we can chat. There's absolutely no obligation. If we chat and it's not for you, no big deal. I will give you and direct you to any other tips or tools that I have to help you, and we can go from there. So if you want to schedule a discovery call because you just don't know which package is best, or you think you know which package is best and you want to talk about that further, then you can again go to my website. In the bottom right corner, there's a link that you can actually click and just schedule, and I will call you. You don't even have to pick up the phone. I will call you and we will chat and it'll be glorious. So that's all, guys. So I actually have a discovery call at 2 today. So that's all I got for you. If anybody, you know what, mental note, I'm not going to do these in the middle of the day anymore. I know that it's not the most ideal as far as people being able to make it because you guys are all out there working, obviously, which is totally good. Keep up the good work. I'm going to see about doing these probably, again, doing them on a Friday night or maybe a Saturday. So if you have ideas which one you think would be better, maybe comment below. Otherwise, visit Dream Homies, also the Facebook group. Otherwise, I'm going to see you next week, probably at 5, because this is not working. This is not a good time. That's all I got. Bye, guys. Have the best weekend ever.